Hello everyone, I'm continuing my series on the death of Elizabeth II, and the name of the series is The Queen is Dead, Long Live the King. And today we are going to look at Charles III's transits. As you probably well know, he had 4 names. This is not unusual for any potential monarch or prince. His full name was Charles Philip Arthur George, and he could have chosen any of these names as his royal name. Actually, the late Queen's father chose a different name for himself as king, because whenever you choose a name, it is also some sort of ars poetica or some sort of signaling what you would like to become. And in Charles' case, of course, he has been Charles up till now. He was Prince Charles anyway. And I also think that it's quite difficult to change your name at the age of 73. But if you look at British history, you will see that Charles is not a very famous or not a very common name among kings. Actually, that's why he is only the 3rd. The first Charles I, was actually the first king to be beheaded. And it's a time in history, in the 17th century, when the powers that be tried to totally put the world upside down. They did not exactly succeed, although Cromwell came after Charles I, and of course the Lord Protector, and he imposed very harsh rules, and they closed the theaters. You had to wear black clothes, and there was a group of people who were even stricter than Cromwell and his branch. So they were actually banned from exiled from England. They were put on the Mayflower, and those were the Pilgrim Fathers, and those are the what actually created the American aristocracy, because they were sent to the new lands of America, and that's where they had to live, and that's why you have Thanksgiving as a festival in the United States, which is actually when I lived there 20 years ago, I was told that it is a bigger festival than Christmas. So it was really something that was held very sacred, and it was very, very important for Americans. So that was King Charles I. And then the second one, who as a boy went to live in the French court, and then he was sent home, and he became Charles II. And he was a very flamboyant, very light king, let's put it this way. And he restored things that had been banned by the Puritans. And for instance, that is the time when Restoration comedy became a famous genre in England. So it's some sort of, so if we look at the legacy, okay, there's a king who was killed, murdered, and there is another king who restored everything. And we will see what the 3rd Charles will do with the monarchy and in the whole situation. But as I always say, and this is the basis for using centaurs and asteroids, because if something gets a name, if you give someone or something a name, you give it a destiny. So in this case, Charles has chosen his own destiny by becoming Charles III. Now let's take a look at his chart, and we are going to only look at his transits this time, and then I'm going to look at his progressions and solar arcs in another video. And the title of this particular part is The Sovereign Never Dies. And this is a very important aspect, very, very important signal, And by this, I would like also to close the debate on what time the queen died. Did she actually die on the 8th? No, she has been dead for quite a while. There are so many stupid things flying on the internet, and it's fascinating to actually shocking to see how many bad things were wished on her. I really can't understand. Usually liberals who can't bear any different opinion, and they wished pain and suffering on her. You know what? I don't know. I don't know what if mankind is ready to die out. It's for these people, really. Anyhow, yes, she died on the 8th, and if you take a look at her picture, 2 days prior to her death, and look at her hands, you will see that her hands are already purplish black, and this is what happens during the death, because a death is not an event; it's a process. It starts with the organs more functioning, that the blood vessels are no longer strong enough, the heart is no longer strong enough to pump enough blood into the limbs. So first your hands and feet go, and then your vital organs shut down one after the other, and then you give in, and then your soul is leaving your physical body. So it's a process. And I believe in the 1630 time, precisely because the sovereign never dies, and because once the sovereign is dead, the next one, the heir, is immediately becoming the sovereign. So that is why I am willing to work with the 1630 time, although some English astrologers want to use a different chart, a different time, up to them. I think that the 1630 is the right time, and I'm going to show you because there are some fascinating features in it. Okay, if we look at King Charles III's chart, what is immediately obvious is the trans-Pluto ascendant conjunction, which is dimension jump. Also the Pluto-Ceres conjunction, the very, very strong connection to the mother energy. It's actually what it was. I'm not going to look at the Ceres Lilith conjunction, Saturn Lilith conjunction, simply because the Liliths are very difficult to delineate in a man's chart. So we are not going to go down that alley, simply because this is not an analysis on his own chart. It's just to show you some interesting points. He does have an applying conjunction to Chiron. The sun is going to be conjunct Chiron, so clearly some healing energies, the need or the potential to heal is there. On the IC, the roots, you have Neptune and Venus. Neptune is exactly conjunct the IC. So clearly in his ancestral past, there is both love, harmony, and power through money or power through riches, and Neptune transcendence and anything linked to Neptune. This is really a beautiful conjunction, by the way. And on the midheaven, you have Astrea, the karma breaker. So clearly he came with the potential or chance to become a person as his vocation as a karma breaker. And of course, there's the South Node Mercury conjunction, which again is interesting because it means that I want to learn from the past. I want to learn what I bring in as a karmic experience, as a karmic behavior. And of course, Scorpio South Node is someone who, when hurt or offended, will table that emotion, and maybe he or she will be able to actually wait for like 20 years before retaliation, and retaliate they will, you can be sure. And the North Node is in Taurus, so is the moon, and the moon is applying towards the North Node. So clearly the moon, the spiritual essence, highlights the chosen destiny, which is the 10th house, be someone important, and with Taurus create harmony and wealth and resources. So that's it in a nutshell. We are not going to look at his aspects or configurations or anything. And this is these are the transits around the time of his mother's death. But it becomes immediately obvious is the moon is highlighting Ceres and Saturn also. And Chiron is coming up and down mid-heaven. It already crossed it once a couple of months ago, and now it's going back there. But it's exactly conjunct Astrea. Mars is exactly conjunct Pallas Athena, the wise girl, and well, that's practically it. But what I did was I put the space-time moment transits to here. The across, you see his natal placements, and down are the space-time moment of his mother's death. Now, what you can pick up immediately is the fact that the sun and the moon are very active in this chart. And very often, of course, when we look at the transits, we never look at the sun or the moon per se, because we really, when we do forecasting work, we look at the outer planets, what they do, because those are the vehicles of destiny. At the same time, when we know a certain space-time moment, we can always look at the fast-moving planets, and the moon is always there when there is a death. For some reason, the moon is always making something important. And here you have the sun, the transiting sun, sesquiquadrating his moon, and the transiting moon squaring his sun. So clearly there's a sun-moon connection, very strong sun-moon connection on that particular day and time. With the moon, it's also time. I'm just showing you that this is very often when we want to rectify a chart, that we will see an applying and a separating aspect of almost equal importance, and that is why we need to extrapolate. That's you hardly ever get to 0.00. So you will see applying and separating. For instance, with the sun, you have an applying a semi-sextile to Venus and a separating semi-sextile to Pluto. So things like that. Sorry, that's also applying. Separating quincunx to Astrea. Yeah. Okay, what is also important maybe that Venus is on Saturn, and Jupiter is making quincunxes to Mercury and Uranus, and you will see that Chiron is making a lot of stuff, not just on Astrea, but also opposite Venus. And also opposite Neptune, so because of the Neptune-Venus conjunction on the IC. So this, if you take a look at it, what is also important is the Jupiter ascendant trine. That's an important one, and the Venus North Node trine. Trines, of course, denote movement without friction. That's Bernard Brady's expression for something that is going to be very quickly accomplished. There are 88 transits within 1 degree in the synastry grid. I'm not presenting here the synastry grid, just that portion that was above. But as you know, I work with most of the main asteroids and all the centaurs that are really important from a karmic viewpoint. So there are 88 ones. And just to remind you, the Quindecile is 165 degrees. Obsession, ambition is linked to it. And these are the most relevant ones that I selected. These are not all within 1 degree, but these were the relevant transits of his mother's death. Jupiter is trining the ascendant, so he's coming into age, he's coming into power. Saturn is squaring his sun, and Uranus is opposite his sun, which is fascinating to me because the Jupiter-Saturn square, which I always say it is like an earthquake. It has the earthquake effect. And this year, this fall, this autumn, the square is not becoming exact. It will be within 1 degree for quite a while, all through the fall, autumn, coming up to early winter. But it's on his sun. It's not just on his sun. He has a very tight sun Ceres square. Here's his Ceres. The sun Ceres square. It's a fixed square, so it's quite important, I think. It shows his relationship to his country, to his mother, the mothering instinct, to the children of his mother. The mother of his children. Sorry. His relationship to his nation and to the mother of his children was not exactly spotless. But this is an old karmic issue that he hasn't even tried to rectify yet. And now the Uranus Saturn square is on his sun and also on his Ceres. We will see that. So that's important. But at the same time, there's also a Saturn Quindacila to his ascendant. Clearly, there's ambition there to finally get to where I want to get in my life path. There is a Neptune Sun trine, so your dreams are coming true. A Chiron Venus, obviously there's a karmic wound around loved one. Chiron is on the MC, I told you this, and Australia, we discussed this already. And then the nodal axis is also important because the south node is making a quindacilla to the moon, and the north node is making a sesquiquadrate to Jupiter. Now, as you can see, not too many moon aspects are there. To the moon, of course, transits to the moon. And the reason why is because he's 73 years old, so not exactly spring chicken if you consider it. So the moon no longer actually represents the mother. The moon is actually your spiritual essence and your own soul, your spirit. And that is why it is you. It describes you most of the time. When you're very young, the moon is also your mother or your mothering instinct later on. But it's Ceres, the nurturing principle and the mother of all, that is going to show us what is happening regarding his mother. There are very tight 0.5 minutes of an arc aspects, 8 of them. You might remember that there were quite a few in Queen Elizabeth II's chart as well. And these are the ones. Now, we usually don't use noviles in forecasting techniques. I just included in here because I found them interesting. One is from Ceres, the nurturing principle to the IC, end of life. The novile is 40 degrees, and it denotes self-sacrifice or some sort of sacrifice. We never use these minor aspects in forecasting, but at the same time, they kind of open up another layer. So Mars is quite active. It makes a novile to the moon, sacrifice. It's a sesquiquadrate to Vesta, the focusing principle. Now he will have to focus on the tasks ahead. It's interesting because, of course, there were tons of memes around his finally becoming king. And one of them said, well, your face looks like this when all of a sudden at the age of 73, you have to work or you have a proper job. I'm not commenting on this, okay? I'm not commenting on this. There's a Saturn Quindacilla. Clearly, there's very strong ambition and obsession now at this point in his life. We spoke about the Chiron Astrea already. Ceres Mars trine. All the obstacles are taken away and something is happening very quickly. It's the mother who is going and his will is liberating. And I included 2 Sedna aspects. I normally don't use Sedna in forecasting simply because Sedna is so incredibly slow. Sedna denotes creation through dissection. It simply means that whenever there's something not working properly, you have the ability to take everything apart, examine the portions, and whatever is not good, just throw them out and repair the whole by changing things. So that's sadhana. That's how you create. You dissect whatever is non-working and you recreate something in a workable form. But sadhana's orbit is 12,500 years. So it takes ages for it to travel even 1 degree. So I never look at it. But in this time, these aspects are within half a minute of an arc. So it's really, really very tight. And it's with Jupiter, there's a quincunx. So clearly you can rearrange your own luck and expansion. And there's a semi-sextile to Uranus, which simply means change, big changes ahead. Now, here I looked at the Ceres. Transits to Ceres, because Ceres is the nurturing principle and also the mother figure. Sometimes it denotes you as a mother, sometimes it denotes your own mother, or when you are a man, it could denote the mother of your children. But the mother, the nurturer, is here. And of course, Queen Elizabeth was the nurturer of the nation. Even if you didn't like her, I greatly, highly appreciated her in many, many ways. And I think it's a terrible loss to the world, because truly an era has closed. And just to name another great guy who just passed, Gorbachev. It was amazing to me to see how Western politicians didn't honor his funeral. I don't care what you think about him. I personally think that he was not a hero for the Russians, but he was a hero in many respects for us Central and Eastern Europeans, because we finally got our freedom. I'm not going to elaborate this, what sort of freedom it was. But anyhow, to see that someone who worked so hard to rectify the East and the West, and not to honor his last episode here on Earth, that was really interesting to me, compared to George Floyd's funeral. Not saying anything. Okay, so here are the transits to Ceres. The moon was exactly opposite Ceres, highlighting the mother instinct, the mother principle. Jupiter was also sesquiquadrating Ceres, obviously something big and unreconcilable at the moment was happening. Saturn was exactly opposite Ceres, clearly. Okay, this happens every 15 years, so that's an important aspect. And Uranus was squaring Ceres. As I told you, in his chart, he has an exact Sun-Ceres square, and that is what got triggered by the transits, by the Uranus-Saturn transit. And of course, Saturn is tasks and duties and burdens, and Uranus is liberation and chaos and anarchy. Okay, Neptune was biquintiling Ceres. And normally, again, Neptune doesn't bring anything in transit. It just doesn't trigger any events. It really just blurs or colors things. And the biquintile is not an aspect we are using in transits and in forecasting work, but still I found it interesting that there's a biquintile. And also there's a Ceres-Ceres conjunction. And actually life cycle transit, there were 5 life cycle transits in the space-time moment compared to Charles III's chart. And what we call in karmic astrology, life cycle transits are the transits where planets or celestial objects make aspects to themselves. And there was a Saturn, Quindacila, obsession, ambition. There was also the Ceres conjunction to itself. Clearly an era is finished. There's a Vesta trine to itself, Vesta trine, focusing on the focusing principle, what need to be done. And of course, if you consider he already did a lot, I'm going to elaborate this a little bit later. And there's also an Astrea semi-sextile to itself. Karmic issues can be changed. Karma breaker, destiny changer is here. It's a minor aspect, but you see, it still works. And then the Lilith, the Black Moon Lilith is making a trine. And again, we usually don't take a look at what we don't consider important, any of the Liliths in a man's chart, but it's quite fascinating that the Black Moon is also triggered. And last time I spoke to you about the novice semi-decile, 162 degrees. And here is the life germ aspect, 18 degrees. This is half of a decile, 36 degrees. We call it semi-decile. And we call it a life germ. The orb is 1 degree. The glyph is just an X. I'm not a glyph painter, so I couldn't find any better. It's good. It works for me, so you can use it or you can change it any way you want. And it shows what is sprouting. Now, any time event, any time something happens, any life event will have a couple of ones. And in transits, there were only two. One is the Venus-Pluto semi-decile, which shows that power and money are sprouting. And the other one is the Ceres-Hygeia semi-decile. And Hygeia is cleanliness and sacred spaces. And of course, it simply shows the need or the wish or the efforts that Charles the King is trying to make in order to reconcile his sons. It's a terribly sad story. I told you many times that I despise Meghan Markle deeply from the bottom of my heart, because yes, you can leave the royal family and say, okay, I'm going to live a normal, ordinary life. You are entitled to that. Or you can stay and do your duty and shut up. That's your second potential. What you can't do is exactly what she does, whining and screaming and butt cashing in on everything. So that's very, very low class and very ugly, to tell you the truth. We have in Hungary a word we call people trolls, who don't know how to behave and who are always whining and always making other people responsible, or they blame other people. And that's exactly what Meghan is doing. And the fact that Charles III now wanted his sons to go together so that the whole family is showing some sort of unity was very important. I think this is his first kingly deed in many ways, and that's exactly what the semi-decile is indicating. I am going to continue with progressions and solar arcs, and anyhow, thank you for listening. Bye-bye.